Hey, everybody. Nick Livingston here from Honeit. On this week's podcast, we have Craig Fisher. You probably already know Craig, founder of TalentNet. He's an author of Hiring Humans, which we'll talk a little bit about. He's a mentor and advisor to HR technology companies and startups in the space. And he's a lifelong recruiter, and he's a good friend of Honeit. Everybody, Craig Fisher.
Hi, Nick. Hi, Andy. How you guys doing today?
We also have Andy Rebokin joining us today, who's a solutions architect at Honeit, who knows Craig well and also lives in Texas. So welcome, Andy.
Thank you. I don't want to miss the ride, Nick. So thanks for bringing me along.
Awesome. Well, Craig, I think first thing to maybe celebrate is 15 years of TalentNet. Congratulations. That's you've a great event. We've been there a couple of times in Texas, but maybe you could talk a little bit about how TalentNet got going and how you keep it going for all of these years.
Yeah, thank you. It's a fun story. In 2008 and 2009, I started hosting a regular Twitter chat for recruiters, the first ever hashtag chat for recruiting on Twitter. And it was a weekly thing. And we got together on Wednesday evenings and talked about, is social media good for recruiting? Basically, it's, rinse, repeat forever and ever. And very quickly, it got to the point in sort of the Twitter evolution where people wanted to take those relationships into the real world and meet IRL. And it was a bad economy. And a lot of people were complaining that they couldn't afford to go to an expensive conference in Vegas or on the coast. And couldn't we just do something inexpensive here in the middle of the country in Texas? We had Chris Honeit and Jim Schneider and all these thought leaders right here, William Tincup. And so that's what we did. We formed a board and we hosted the first ever TalentNet live event at PepsiCo's Frito-Lay headquarters in the fall of 2009 on the anniversary of 9/11. And we gave a big check to Veterans of Foreign Wars and some other charities. And interesting, we didn't really know what to expect. And 200 people showed up from all over. And Bill Borman came across the pond and did our closing keynote presentation. And then we started getting asked to do them in other places. In the next couple of years, we did them in San Antonio and Austin and Chicago and London. And then we kind of settled into just twice a year right here in Texas on the first day of South by Southwest in Austin every year in the spring, and then in Dallas in November in the fall. And it's just worked out great. It's a tight community. And, I don't put too much pressure on the community. We don't have constant newsletters and all this communication. It's just me doing my thing. And people show up because I keep it timely, right? There's no requirement to send me a PowerPoint 3 months in advance. It's going to be up to the minute stuff at TalentNet Live.
Well, no, I think, and people can kind of rely on that date too, which is nice because South by Southwest is happening. I thought that was a blast because not only you get a good relevant recruiting conference, but you can sneak a day or two into some of the events that are happening at South by Southwest and make it kind of fun and work trip. So that seems to be very strategic.
But and people are already going there. Right?
I think you're right in terms of the loose and the types of the speaking engagements, right? You can tell it's not static presentations and things like that. It's more interactive.
That's right. Unscripted, if you will.
Unscripted.
On purpose. That's right.
Well, no, we had a good time there at the last event. And I remembered it was near the Yeti headquarters, in one of the big movie theater events. And so comfy seats and a great stage and it was really well organized. So congrats.
I have a question for you, Craig. How did you get the PepsiCo headquarter venue for that first one? How did you manage to land that as a venue? I mean, I think a lot of people would like to attend just because of the great venue.
That's right. So Jim Schneider was on my original planning committee, and he was a sourcer at PepsiCo at the time. He was the lead sourcer, and he ended up becoming a manager and a director there in sourcing. And so he hosted us for the first few years.
Hmm.
And so we did 3 or 4 in a row at Frito-Lay. And then because all of these leaders from TA teams were attending and sending their teams, all the headquarters in the Dallas-Fort Worth area would attend the event. And so they started raising their hand to say, hey, we could do one. And so we've gotten to host at Capital One's headquarters and Pizza Hut and Toyota and J.C. Penney and all these, it's a rich environment. There's more Fortune 500 headquarters in a few square miles in DFW than just about anywhere else in the world. So we've been really fortunate. And then in Austin, very often we'll host at the headquarters of what's now Amazon, but it's Whole Foods Market. And the last couple of years they've been tied up, so we've had to go elsewhere. Yeti did host us last year at the movie theater, which was cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember the Whole Foods event too. Andres Traslavina is a good friend of Honeit too, and
That's right.
I think we originally met at a TalentNet event there. So that's awesome. Maybe we could talk a little bit about the book, Hiring Humans. I mean, I think the title couldn't be more interesting and controversial almost in the recruitment, TA, and hiring landscape these days around automation and AI with high touch recruiting and hiring. And are we going to still hire people that do jobs, right? Or is it going to be bots and agents and things like that? Not only interviewing the people, but maybe doing the work. Maybe talk a little bit about where the book came from. And again, it came out September last year. So maybe you could give us your thesis on that, but also has anything maybe changed in the last year with some of the rise around us in terms of AI?
Yeah. So, the book is basically my philosophy on how to do recruiting right. And yes, I guess things have changed, but the book kind of still stands because it's the idea that AI is just more technology, right? And automation is just more technology. Like things changed drastically in the 90s when we got job boards and the internet and, then LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and then, mobile phones and the iPhone. And, every time this was going to change recruiting forever. And it was going to, it's the end of the need for recruiters. And that's never really happened, right? It's just enhanced what we do. And so, the book is about, yes, tools. I'm a tools guy, right? I'm an advisor in the HR tech space, and I review technology every day in this space. And I'm a big fan of hacking my way through a job or a project. And so I'm constantly talking about automation, technology, and tools, but you have to keep the relationship in the process. And that's what Hiring Humans is about. So yes, we may automate some of it, but the reality is that you still have to have a conversation with a person at some point, most of the time, in order to actually get hired.
Andy, what do you think about that? We like to think that talking to people is still a very important part of the recruiting process. Maybe it shifts where those conversations happens. Maybe there's automation or replacements of human conversations with bots or chatbots or screening tools on the beginning side of things if you're filtering. But yeah, I think we kind of share that same vision that human conversations and kind of an authenticity, again, depending on the type of role or the type of company or industry you're working on, where's that balance and where does automation or AI maybe start to chip away at parts of that?
Mm-hmm.
But specifically on the agency side or recruiting or like external recruiting side of things, like if your livelihood is placing people and kind of a revenue driven side of this, it's like, how far away do you want to get? Because without the relationships, you can't place that person a couple times over the course. That's right. So,
yeah, if you're an external recruiter, I mean, your bread and butter is being able to come back to people over and over again, right? I mean, over many years, that's the game, and you're not going to automate that most of the time. So you might be able to automate sort of mass communication and recurring conversations a little bit, right? You can certainly set an alert now to call somebody back that you couldn't do 20 years ago. And so there's definite advantages to utilizing technology. And if you're not, if you're in recruiting and you're not already utilizing ChatGPT and the other AI tools on a regular basis, you're doing it wrong. You need to be doing that. So I'm an officer right now in an HR tech startup that's a CRM and ATS called Connect, and they've got a big automation feature, right? You can almost automate the entire first round interview process. And I think we're going to attempt to have some synergy with Honeit at some point for some of this interview tracking and technology that Honeit does so well. But I think, even given that we're going to automate some of that, recruiters' roles internally are shifting a bit, right? We're seeing talent acquisition become more about talent management. And so we're taking those roles into sort of what's traditionally been the HR space for onboarding and employee engagement and those sorts of things. And now with technology, we're able to do a little bit better job of internal mobility. And that's becoming, what has traditionally been a recruiting and talent acquisition person is doing more of that bit. And so our tools, right, are evolving as well. Eightfold is square in the middle of all that. And used to be that would only be kind of a workday thing. So I appreciate that our industry is evolving and that I don't think all recruiting jobs are going away. They're just going to change a little bit.
What do you see in the kind of the broader scope of humans in jobs and maybe the future of work? Because I think what we're talking about is the tools and the technology or the process of which you're still hiring the person to do the job. Mm-hmm. Are you starting to see automation or AI reduce the number of people companies are hiring? Are we seeing any of those trends? Or
yeah, we are. So the labor market data clearly shows that certain jobs are being affected, but other jobs are being created. So we're not quite level. We're still down a bit for hiring, but it's going to just sort of move things around. It's not going to totally eliminate most jobs or anything like that. Now, industry specific things are evolving as we speak, right? Ford is shutting down EV plants all over the place. And so what we thought maybe was a way forward in some industries is going to take a step back. And this is just typical of business cycles. If you've been in this space for any time at all, we see these trends every 8 to 10 years, and they kind of go with politics, and they kind of go with just the cycle of the U.S. economy. So we'll see, how interesting it gets, and I think with the new government in place in the U.S., we're going to see definitely some interesting shifts. But hopefully, we just see some lower interest rates and better bills at the grocery store.
Craig, do you have any advice for, say, companies, whether they're external recruiting firms or in-house TA and HR teams, knowing what you know about the various tools, the landscape, that balance between human and automation, any just advice for companies who might want to start incorporating AI or automation if they haven't yet, like what to look out for, what to think about, maybe the non-obvious parts of some of that?
Yeah. So, if you think about some of the things that AI is good at, right? It's good at summarizing data and spotting trends in data. And that's what you should be using it for. So tools like Honeit can do a very good job of kind of showing you trends from your interviews over time and your hires. And, you can take some of that data and put it in ChatGPT and say, tell me what's interesting about this. And Honeit is starting to incorporate some of that as well. And so I think that, if you're not taking the hiring data that you've accumulated, and we have rich data, we just haven't done much with it, right? I mean, we're not very good even at capacity planning and things like that. So we should be able to do a better job of those things because of AI. But just simple tasks, should be part of your daily routine right now. And you should be building custom GPTs for, the tone of voice of the employer that you're hiring for, and to capture, audience attention, build personas for different types of roles and things like that. you still definitely need to put human eyeballs on the output from ChatGPT. So we're not completely there yet, right? It's there's still mistakes.
I find it strange, scheduling automation is one of these things that, every recruiter or interview scheduling, it is kind of a common nightmare and a tedious task. But I'm still amazed at some of the companies we talk to that just haven't implemented any sort of a scheduling automation tool
Right.
to their workflow. And it's been around for at least 10 years, right? Kind of mainstream and inexpensive, yet some companies just are still sending 3 emails back and forth to find someone's availability and then manually sending out an invite it's like, so still part of this stuff, it seems so obvious. There's easy, lightweight opportunities for innovation, yet, actually execution or implementation might be challenging, depending on the size of the company or their tolerance around risk or automation. So maybe the follow-up to that would be, are there any misconceptions maybe you think might be out there from either HR people thinking AI is scary versus helpful, or the other way around? I don't know, just any, maybe negative connotations that are out there that shouldn't be, or maybe we should be worried in certain situations.
So I think there's a lot of misconceptions about applicant tracking systems and bias and candidates having to ATS proof their resumes and things like that. So my next book, Hiring Humans is the first, and my next book is called Paint Your Store. That comes out next month, and it's more about the personal brand and the personal journey to acquire new gigs and employers and customers, and how do you stand out in the crowd? And nothing's changed about that. You still need to do the things that show that you're more interesting than the next person. There's no evil AI in ATS that's trying to exclude you, and there's no increased amount of bias because of matching technology and things like that. Bias causes bias, not machines, right? It's a human emotion is what bias is, and so I think there's good things and bad things about applicant tracking systems for sure, as we know. And you have to keep your eyeballs on that as well. It's not set it and forget it. It's not wind it up and let it go. It's constant adjustment. And AI is not changing that, unfortunately.
And you're kind of specifically talking about the idea where candidates get auto rejected by the machine, right? It's like the candidate from my experience, it's still a recruiter like reviewing a resume 6 seconds, and then
that's right.
Depending on what they see or don't see, they're clicking a button versus but maybe there is a bit of a matching or algorithm in place before that, or a short list
I think
guiding some of that.
The auto rejection is and should be more about candidates opting out by answering the screening questions, right? So if you aren't a match because you didn't answer the screening questions correctly, then yes, you should get some sort of communication saying, look, not now, not this time. This is not the right fit for you in this situation. Please stay with us because we'll have other jobs and we'd like to know about your career journey and how you're moving along. And so that kind of communication is great, but it's not an auto just because we had a machine look at your resume, you're out. It's you didn't meet the job qualification.
I feel like candidate experience, people went so far that direction. And with the one-click apply from LinkedIn or Indeed, right? It's like there's zero friction now for candidates. It's like, no, bring back like 5 or 6 pre-screening questions to make sure they're authorized, make sure they have a certain amount. And then you're right. If a candidate says yes to these 3 and no to that one, okay, not right for this job, but based on your 3 yeses or 4 yeses here, have you ever thought about this role or this track?
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, that's where some of that AI could be quite meaningful. But again, you need the inputs. And so if you make it too easy to apply, we're not even capturing some of those inputs to be able to then make some of those recommendations.
So that's right. So this is where AI should be improving the situation. And we're also not quite there yet, but we're close, right? We're getting closer. I was just reviewing an article that I wrote with the Muse for Forbes 8 years ago that talked about this exact thing. So it's not, right? This is not a new problem.
Waves. Yes,
That's right.
waves.
Yeah.
Andy, any other, I mean, Craig's got a wide range of experience. Any other angles or things that he said that we want to dig into a little bit here? I got some other.
Well, I found a couple things interesting there. One, I wanted to dig into a little bit about the data, and you were talking about some of the importance of where we put the value in the process. My question for you is, we know where there's kind of shortcomings in the process as practitioners. My question is, are companies identifying that and putting their pocketbook behind it? I mean, are you seeing spending trends where people are, again, you brought up something interesting like internal mobility, right? Once we have an employee, you would think that we would have more data on them, and we should never lose an employee. In a perfect world, if they've come to us, there must be a path. So I guess my question for you is, what kind of data do you think is required out there? Do companies recognize it, and are you seeing a trend where they're actually paying for it, or asking for it, or some kind of demand? What do you see out there in the market?
Absolutely. So, one of my day jobs is as an advisor to employers, and I work with mostly Fortune 500 companies or Fortune 50 companies on recruitment process and strategy and technology selection and talent attraction, candidate experience, all those things. And I am seeing an uptick in, a need for the data and a consolidation of too many tools, right? So what we see now is there's bloat in LinkedIn spend, and that's kind of getting shifted around. Companies are, onboarding or have been using a CRM that maybe they aren't getting full value out of or not utilizing to the extent that they could or should. And, recruitment marketing dollars are just kind of spent ridiculously. And so that's kind of changing as well. But you have to have data in order to shift away from just accepting what, some agency or technology vendor says is good or normal. And what I think is interesting, the kind of data I like is, stuff like what Honeit provides, which is very rich data over time for how are recruiters and employers and hiring managers doing, and what kinds of candidates end up, staying long term, and what's interesting about those candidates. And the Connect app, for instance, measures intentionality. So when a candidate applies through the Connect app, are they quick to reply? Have they fully filled out their profile? Are they, interested in the job because of their actions? And so, those types of people who are enthusiastic about it tend to stay longer. And so that's the kind of data I really like. And then, I'm an advisor to Horsefly Analytics, which you all are friends of as well. And they provide the labor market data with salary information and kind of in-market situations for, cost of living and things like that. And I'm seeing employers really dig into that sort of thing as well, trying to get more targeted with what they do.
Are you finding that that's starting to shape some of their strategies around where to build offices based on the talent pools? I mean, some of that geographic data has been around, but I guess, are you seeing people moving from California to Texas, right? So what does that mean for,
Right.
opening up places in Texas or tapping into new markets that may have not been, available or shifting? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So, we've seen a huge shift to Texas, certainly. Toyota moved here a few years ago and ended up hosting the TalentNet Live conference for our 10-year anniversary. So, and then recently, Apple's opened up headquarters in Austin, and Facebook, and Elon Musk has moved his operations here. And so there is data to support. Yes, you can hire technical staff in certain areas. And yes, this is where all the engineers went during COVID, and right, those sorts of things. And, oddly, employers are also using that data to say, can we have people back in the office or not? And should we be making those decisions quickly or rashly? And, there's been certainly some blowback from organizations who've just demanded that people come in full time back to the office. So, we shall see. It's an interesting time in the world.
Are they asking Craig, what do you think? Should we bring folks back to work? And I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing your thoughts on that here, but that's a very, very big decision. And I think we're even seeing hiring plans stalling or lagging, perhaps even from COVID recovery, because that's a big decision to make before you could even decide how many people to hire is where to hire them. You know what I mean? Or what's the new. So
That's
I feel
right.
like people kind of waiting for some of these companies to make these decisions before the floodgates open with jobs and recs. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think that we're certainly hybrid is here to stay, right? I mean, that's not going to change ever again. We've got too much good technology to do things like what we're doing right now, to collaborate. And so there will, you know, there's never going to be 100% of companies going 100% back in the office. That's just not happening. But I don't think it should be necessarily a company-wide mandated thing, right? I think it is location specific and team specific and even project specific. I think it should get down to that level of detail when making that sort of decision. And companies who are just, blanketly saying everybody's coming to the office and that's it. We've got too much invested in real estate. That's short-sighted, if you ask me.
Oh, doing it because of the sunken costs of the real estate, maybe not the best decision. I do see the other side of that argument where you're like, well, this department has to be on site 5 days a week. Why does this department not? But I think you're right. If you break it maybe down to the project, maybe there is a fair way of doing that may not be tied to one function versus another, or just
it's a control issue, right? And it's been proven that it's about feeling lack of control. And the problem with that is that the leaders who are making those decisions in most of these organizations are going to go somewhere else at some point, right? And so you're making these sort of long-term commitments on behalf of whoever's coming next. And there's just turnover, and that's a real thing. So, I'm a fractional CMO a lot, right? I was a CMO for Allegis Global Solutions for several years, and then I got to kind of go internally and do that for some of their customers for employer marketing and things like that. And I do that for a lot of HR tech companies. But the average tenure for a CMO is something like 2 years, right? And so you're not being fair to the future of an organization by demanding, because you feel you've got a control issue, to change things forever for the next person that's going to fill your role.
Interesting. What are you, you're looking at this from all these lenses: Fortune 50, large RPO, early stage TA technology startups, advising, and employment branding, marketing, consulting work. I mean, you're looking at this from a lot of lenses. Mm-hmm. Where do you see this going in the next 18 months? Where do you think we should keep our eyes? Where's the ball moving, so to speak?
So I think we're going to see, some economic expansion for sure, right? Depending on what happens with Ukraine and Russia, and that's definitely an issue that we've got to keep our eyes on. But we'll see some economic expansion, and I think that the interesting automation that's happening in the world. We just had a Sam's Club in Grapevine, Texas, reopen after a couple of years because it was destroyed in a tornado, and it's reopened and it's all automated. So you scan an item that you're shopping for with an app on your phone, and there's no cash registers. You just pay through your app and walk out. It's the most amazing thing you've ever seen. But that type of thing is going to draw customers back to retail stores, right? It's going to be an adventure. And, already we find ourselves inventing reasons to go outside the house during the day because we're not going to an office as much. And we need that sort of interaction. So I think the environment is ripe and ready for some expansion. I think we've seen, definitely the crunch on our pocketbooks for the last, year plus has taken a toll, and people are ready to kind of get back into a spending mindset. So hopefully, we, like I said before, we see some lower interest rates and things shape up pretty quickly. And that's going to mean job expansion as well.
Yeah, spending more money, business investing in their growth, and if they can do so not tied to some of the real estate investments of the past, then maybe you can get back to hiring more people and flexible schedules and things like that. Well, Craig, you're always fun to talk to, always full of information and knowledge. I'd like to thank you for joining the podcast this week. Where can people get a hold of you if they need advice, need mentorship, want consulting on employment branding? Are there a new HR technology company that needs an advisor? Where can they get a hold of you?
Yes. So an easy way to do it is to just go to hiring-humans.com. Right. That's my book. And that goes to my website, talentnetlive.com. And that's a great way to get a hold of me, or just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find.
And is that the best place to get the book too? Hiring-humans.com?
Yes. Okay. There's links to all the online and retail outlets where the book is available there. And you can even download a free first chapter of the book there, as well as some giveaways that are very handy and helpful for anybody in the talent space.
Sounds good. We'll make sure to put a link of that in the posting. But thank you, Craig. Always a pleasure. Really appreciate you joining us this week.
Great to see you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.